Hey guys, what's going on? So, today I'm going to do a bit of a palate cleanser. After finishing up all my night haunts and getting all that basing done and taking, months to do that because, well, I'm a little slow. I wanted to have a nice palate cleanser of just like one unit I can get done in one video and I can call it good. So, having picked up the Red Gobbo's Tin Boy, I thought this would be, a perfect palette cleanser. We're going to get this assembled, painted, based, all the stuff with this. And I'm going to have to figure out how to do snow basing because I think that'll be best with this one. So let's get into it. Putting together the Tin Boy was simple and straightforward. I didn't do any modification to it or anything. Well, except I may have messed up just a simple thing or two. Getting the body, legs, and tools put together was nice and quick and simple once I got them clipped off of the sprue and cleaned up of mold lines and just the leftover little bits of sprue. But once I had the tools in the back of the body glued in there, then things went a little bit wrong on accident. So there are two curved plates that protect the leg joints on the model, and I'm pretty sure I put the wrong one on each side. Number 11 is supposed to go on the side with the leg on the ground, and number 10 is supposed to go on the leg that's kicking in the air. And I'm pretty sure I put them on the wrong side. I thought I did it correctly at the time. So now we're going to just call it, creative interpretation. Because after gluing the one onto the wrong side, I cut the other one off and cleaned that one up, along with the wind-up handle that goes on the back of the body. I glued the handle on where it's supposed to go. Then I went to glue the other armor on to the opposite leg, and that's when this happened. Oh. I love when I do stuff wrong. This is supposed to be on this side, and this one is supposed to be on this side. Oh well. Did I correct it? Nope. I just rolled with it. Like I said, creative interpretation, right? After that, I snipped off and cleaned the head of the Tin Boy, and when I went to glue the head to the body, I noticed the second leg armor, it wasn't really staying glued in place. So I just removed it for now, and I worked on gluing, the head onto the body. Once I got that on there, I glued the armor back on, and I moved on to the next pieces. This time it's the Red Gobbo's head and hat that need snipping, cleaning, and gluing. Then it was on to one of the arms. This one will be dragging the sack behind him. It's the same procedure as all the other bits. Snip, clean, glue. I know it's a push fit part, but I wanted to get the glue in there just to give it a better connection. And while I went to glue that on, the armor fell off again. So this time I said fuck it, and instead of plastic cement, I just used super glue. Then I set the whole thing aside for a good amount of time to just let it dry. When I came back and picked it up, the Tin Boy's head fell off. So I glued that back on and set about finishing assembling the model. Kinda. So the next step was putting together the base. Okay, clipping it out, cleaning up the sprue bits and the mold lines from the base and the Red Gobbo's bag is, putting together the base. But there is one thing I decided not to do, and that's glue the bag together. Because of all the little detailed grenades and the robot in there that I also wanted to paint. So I left it so the top of the bag could come off. And you're probably going to ask in the comments, how is the top of the bag going to stay there? And I'll be honest with you, I have no idea how. Even with the project, now being technically done when I'm making the video, I don't know how I'm going to do that or what magnets I can use to do that. But for now, I'm just going to glue the bottom of the bag to the base. After that, I snipped and cleaned the branch part that is supposed to be coming out of the bag off of the sprue. And on that guy, I used a small sanding stick and then just glued it in place. And I'll be honest, putting that in place took a little bit because it kept falling out every time I glued it. But I finally got it into the right place and got it glued, and I just set it aside to dry. Then I snipped the last few pieces that were still on the sprue off of it. Like the Tin Boy's other arm was snipped off and cleaned, and then the Red Gobbo's hand that's holding the firecracker was snipped, cleaned, and glued onto the model. And that's basically how I'm going to assemble it. And here's why. So, I've got my parts in subassembly. Since there are areas that I don't want, or that are going to be hard to paint if I have them all on, or I have all the parts on. So I'm just going to leave them off while I paint those areas, then attach them and paint the other areas. I don't honestly know what I'm going to do for painting right now. I'm not sure if I want to go with the box art, like here, or, find some other inspiration to do. So I'm going to have to sit on this for a few days, but it's ready to go when I do decide to paint it. And yeah. So let's get to painting. No, let's get to priming and then painting. Since it's so cold out, I didn't want to prime outside with rattle cans like I normally do. So I grabbed my airbrush and the Army Painter matte black primer that I have and primed every piece of the model and the sub-assemblies. And yes, I'm spraying straight onto the table because that's just how I do things, and that is exactly what this table was made for. Once I have them all primed, it's time for painting. First, I'll be using Amethyst Rose from P3 Paints. This will be used for all of the armor parts on the Tin Boy. I'll start with the arm with the rifle, painting the armor that covers the forearm and the shoulders. I'm planning on doing 2 coats with each base paint. So once I finished the arm with the rifle, I started on the main body. I began with the leg armor for the kicking leg, then moved on to the main body, and worked on getting the base color onto just all of the large open areas on this model. After putting the first coat on there, I worked on painting the armor that's dragging the bag, and I may have accidentally knocked the head off the Tin Boy again. Like, it's such a small contact area up on the top there where it's glued on. It just sucks at staying in place sometimes. So after I painted the armor, I moved up to the shoulder of that arm. After that, I worked on the inside of the leg armor. Once I got done with that, I was done with the first coat, and I started on the second. Once I finished that second coat, I grabbed, I think it was Cador Red from P3, and I started to paint the Red Gobbo's textured clothing around like his neck, wrist, and the hat, and like the end of the hat also. But after basically painting all of the shoulder and hand area, I looked at it, and I'm like, this is a bit too much orange in it. I wanted more red that's kind of just a little bit more vibrant than like amethyst. So it would stand out a little bit from all of the other red that is on this model. So instead, I grabbed a few different paints to see which I wanted to use, and I ended up choosing Soul Red from P3 instead of Cador Red. But instead of painting over the stuff I just did, I kind of just bounced around to different parts of the model. I started with the ball on the end of the Red Gobbo's hat, and then went back and painted over all of the areas I painted with Cador Red. After that, I grabbed the hat again and painted the rim of the hat along with a second coat on the ball at the end. I did have to flip over the head so I could paint the front rim of the hat after I painted that ball. Then I went back to the main body and I painted the firecracker with Amethyst Red, or Amethyst Rose. Rose? Ruby? Rose. Then, again, it's back to the head for a second coat on the rim of the hat. Now, the base coat for the red areas are done. And since it is a Christmas model, let's use green for some of the other areas. I'm going to be using Eosin Green from P3 as my kind of green base coat. I'm going to start with painting the shoulder and arm area on the Red Gobbo. I'll put the first coat on there, then I'm going to jump over to the hat and paint that area with green also. Just the cloth area on there. Then again, it's back to the shoulders for a second coat, and then back to the hat again. After that, I decided that instead of like a brown leather sack or the traditional red bag, I'd go with a green one, just to be, a little bit different. So I took my time and painted that up with 2 coats. I started with the bottom that is attached to the base. I did both the outside and inside of the bag with this same Iosin green. And instead of, doing a coat on the bottom, then a coat on the top, then a coat on the bottom, then a coat on the top, I just did both coats on the bottom of the bag first. Then I switched to the top of the bag and I did 1 coat on the outside of that. Then I went back to the hat and did a second coat on there. And then I finished up with a second coat on the outside of the top of the bag. Yes, I'm bouncing around a lot. I probably shouldn't, but I am. That's just how my brain was working with this. Now we go into kind of the more detailed parts. All of the metal on this model is going to be coated in some big brass balls from P3. A lot of this is going to be using P3. This took the longest to do because there's so much little metal details on it. All of the legs, parts of the arms, the rims around the top and bottom of the body, the waistcoat type thing, all that stuff is going to be brass. And there's just so much of it that I think it's time we do a little bit of a painting montage. Once I finished up the brass, I decided to grab some more Iosin green for some other detail work. I started with the shoulders. On one shoulder, there is a small detail that's an orc-type skull with wings. And instead of it being all brass, I decided to paint the wings with this green. And the same goes for the 25 on the other shoulder. Doing 2 coats and trying my best to keep it as clean and controlled as possible. I didn't want to get any of the green onto the red areas. And I think I did a pretty good job at it. Once I was done with that, I came back in with the brass balls to paint the orc skull. Then I moved on to the Tin Boy's head, grabbing some Moro white from P3 and just kind of coating most of the head in it. I did go a bit sloppy with it for a lot of the area and just covered everything in white. I was a bit more careful around the bottom because of the already painted brass down there, but otherwise I just kind of covered everything with white. Doing the 2 coats, which this could also have maybe used a 3rd coat because there's a little bit of black primer sticking out that you can see. But once I completed the 2nd coat, I grabbed the green again and did the same thing I did on the shoulder. Painted the wings around the orc skull with the green and then painted the orc skull with the brass balls. Once I was done with that orc skull, I painted the periscope on top of the Tin Boy with brass, and then I moved on to the hardest part of the mini. Okay, not the hardest part, but, one of the harder colors to paint, which is Cygnus Yellow from P3, which is, yellow. I painted the eyes and the periscope lens on the Tin Boy's head with that. Using 2 coats, which, honestly, this probably could have used a 3rd or just a bit of touch-up in certain places, since, yellow is sometimes kind of hard to paint. After I finished the eyes and periscope, I started to work on the base. Since it's already textured, I decided to just paint it using the same Moro white that I did for the Tin Boy's head. I covered all of the areas on there that I hadn't painted yet, but I made sure to be a bit more careful when I was working near the feet or the bag or the scattered ornaments on the ground. Once I got the first coat done, I did the little bit of snow that is attached to the 1 foot that's in the air, and then I came back for a second coat. But this one, I only hit the top side of the snow because I wanted to keep some of the like black specks from the primer inside the boot mark area, so it would feel like it was snow that was compressed under the Tin Boy's weight. After I got done with that, I grabbed more Eosin green and I painted the ribbon around the firecracker. Probably should have just done that earlier, but I didn't. And then I decided it would be a good time to finish up the main color of the bag because I hadn't done the inside of the top of the bag yet. So I jumped into that and painted that with 2 coats. Once done there, I grabbed Blind Water green and Caspian blue from P3 for all of the stuff in the bag. The Blind Water green was used as the main color for all of the grenades, with a bit of cold steel used for the rings and fuses. The Caspian blue is used for the Toy Mech Orc in the bag. I was going for like a simple plastic action figure look, so I just decided to do 1 color and that was it. I also used that cold steel for the tools that are sticking out of the back of the Tin Boy. Then for the Tin Boy's mustache, the fuse of the firecracker, and the stick with the star on it, I used Gun Corpse Brown from P3. I also used more Cygnus Yellow to paint the star, but honestly, that really didn't turn out well. Like, all of the paint that I thought I had covered it well with, it just slid down those slanted areas and pooled at the rim of the star. So I'm not sure how I fucked that up so bad. It could be because there was maybe too much water in the mix, but I'm not entirely sure. Once I completed that, I grabbed more cold steel and I painted the barrel of the gun the Tin Boy is carrying. Then I used more brass balls to paint the cylinder where the ammo is, the front spike, and the connectors that hold the barrels together. Then for the finishing touches on the rifle, I used Caspian blue, amethyst rose, and Gun Corpse brown again. For the 2 lights coming out of the barrel, the 2 wires that are running along the underside of the gun, and the stock of the rifle. Now, we get to the part that kind of scares me, because I've never done any type of skin, and I'm not exactly sure how it'll turn out. I grabbed ethereal green from 2 thin coats, and I use that as kind of my base color, because there's so few areas of skin on this model that I'm not going to go with, like, you know, a lot of undertone and stuff like that. I wanted to kind of keep it light, so I thought I would just give it a bit of a bright pop when it comes to the red Gobbo skin. I started on the face and then painted the hand that's holding the firecracker. I did what I've done with every part of this model and put 2 coats on there of just straight ethereal green. Then to finish up the skin, I did like a little bit of highlighting. I mixed the ethereal green with some Moro white and I put it on the areas of skin that would be, you know, pointed upward and getting hit by the light. Then I did a step that I think kind of ruined the skin effect I was going for. And that was using Orc Flesh Wash from 2 thin coats. I thought by putting just like a light coating on there, it wouldn't dull stuff down that much, but I was wrong. It dulled it down like a pretty good amount. I probably should have used it in like a more targeted way than putting it over all the skin, but you live and learn. And then to finish up, I started to glue the last parts together. I glued the arm on in a bit of a different position from like the picture, and then I remembered that I hadn't painted any of the ornaments on the ground or the red Gobbo's earring or the ornament on the stick with the star, so I did all of those quick with a combination of amethyst ruby and Eosin green. Once all of those were painted, I just mixed up some black and white from Vallejo and painted the couple plumes of smoke that are coming from the firecracker and the grenades. After that, I finished up the red Gobbo's face. I used white for his beard, Gun Corpse brown for his goggle straps, and Soul red for his goggles. Then I glued his head where it's supposed to go, and that's actually every piece together now, as I want it to be, except for like the top of the bag. Now it's truly time for just the finishing touches. I mixed Eosin green with white for the highlight on all of the green areas on the shoulder, the bow on the firecracker, the hat, and the bag, and the top of the bag. Then I mixed amethyst ruby with white, and there may have been a little bit too much white this first time around. It was a little brighter than I wanted. So after doing all of the highlighting for the first time, I added more amethyst ruby into the mixture to darken it into a mid-tone, and then went back over some of the areas to try and kind of, blend it in a little bit. And I think it turned out fine. I don't think it's the best highlighting job I've ever done, but, I still like it, and it's a learning experience. And that's where I'm at with the Red Gobbler's Tin Boy. I like the model, I do, and I like how it turned out, but there are a few creative liberties and some problems with the paint on there. The skin is darker than I want it to be after that orc wash. And the highlights on like the armor and a little bit on the bag are a little too bright. But I still like how it has turned out. I think it turned out decently well. And from this point, I can learn to do better with my highlighting and stuff. And here's the other thing. Okay, we gotta set this down. I don't have them sitting here. I should have them sitting here with me. 1 second. Okay, they're gonna sit off to there, so I can show them to you. Okay, so this guy has inspired me to do something dumb that will push the limits of my abilities and technical knowledge when it comes to like model building to the very edge of it. Basically, the thought is that I want to work on, in pieces, a unit at a time, basically. I want to work on a kit-bashed army, based kind of around the Tin Boy. You can maybe see where this is going. So, there is an army that I've seen that was kit-bashed on Play on Tabletop, and I've seen it on Instagram. It's called Grotgard, where somebody took, Gretchen, or like 3D printed, goblin type heads or units for I think it's an Astra Militarum army. I'm popping the photos up here. I want to do something like that, except we're going to go a bit different. Instead of, taking Gretchen and turning them into like Space Marines or Astra Militarum, we're going to make it Groticus. Not a Gretchen Spartacus. No, Groticus. Gretchen with Adeptus Mechanicus. Try and get that. There you go. Okay, you can see it now. So that's a project and a half that I'm going to be working on, and don't expect this to come out for a while, because it is going to take me a while to figure out how to kit bash these and to learn how to kit bash. I might start putting together some of my other stuff and kind of kit bashing some stuff there just so I can practice with it before I work on this. But this is like the big project, the big idea that I have for kit bashing is the Groticus army. But yeah, that's just something to look forward to. Maybe by the end of the year I'll have something to do with it. I don't know. I'm going to try, but I don't make any guarantees. But yeah, that is all I've got for this video other than, the beauty shots. So I hope you're having a royal day, royal night, whatever it is for you. I hope it continues to be royal. And I guess I'll talk to you next time. Don't forget to do the usual stuff with YouTube. Drop a comment. Hit that like button, subscribe. It does help the channel, helps it grow, helps me, that comment you leave, a lot of them I am reading, and it is giving me more ideas, and I do take advice from those sometimes. But yeah, that's it. Let's get to the beauty shots and wrap this video up.